Hey guys, and welcome back to the New Tennis Era podcast. My name's Anthony Hirsch. Today I'm going to be talking about the Sinner Alcaraz US Open final that just went down, and also breaking down the US Open as a whole on the men's side a little bit, getting into the general overview of the tournament as a whole. Also, of course, giving the weekly ATP Power Rankings as well as I do every single week on this podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe to Quality Shot Tennis, and don't forget to like the video as well. So, talking about Sinner against Carlos Alcaraz, this was a shorter meeting than they had at Wimbledon or at, obviously, Roland Garros, which is one of the longest Grand Slam finals ever, and one of the best. This was not one of the best. I would argue that it also wasn't as good as Wimbledon, but obviously it still came with great athleticism, compelling shot making, and Alcaraz honestly produced one of the greatest performances of tennis I've probably ever seen. Definitely one of the best performances I've seen from Alcaraz. Fantastic level of tennis from him. He was dominating the forehand-to-forehand cross-court exchanges from the start, absolutely cracking forehand, serving as well as I've ever seen him, which really was a pattern throughout this whole tournament, barely losing his serve. He only faced one break point all match. Meanwhile, he was able to get 11 break points of his own against Sinner serve. And the elephant in the room is obviously Sinner didn't play his best tennis. This was obvious from the start. That being said, to me, the story of the match was not the level of Sinner's tennis, it was the level of Alcaraz's tennis. Alcaraz came out with a clear game plan and executed and performed, as he called it, and also as Ferrero called it after the match, a perfect performance. And I would tend to agree with them. It was pretty much perfect. It was as close to perfect as you can get, let's say it like that. Serving as well as ever, like I said, incredible on defense. Just ridiculous movement, and the depth of shot that he gets on defense, constantly keeping Sinner under pressure. Alcaraz also said that his confidence with the serve was really high, which also allowed him to go into the return games with much less pressure than usual. Alcaraz becomes the youngest man to win multiple slams on every single surface. He is 6-1 now in slam finals, and he loses just one set the entire tournament, and that was to Jannik in this final. This was a historic final no matter what. It was the first time that two men have played against each other in 3 finals in the same season. And it's not 2-0 for Alcaraz coming into this one. It's not 2-0 for Sinner coming into this one. It was 1-1 in the head-to-head. So the storylines were all there for this match. It was going to be historic no matter what. And like I said, it did come with good shot making. I'll break down specific things we saw in the points, specific important moments in the match, important games and points as well. But the thing that I really want to break down is that Alcaraz was able to play his A game, even though Sinner was not able to. It didn't seem like Sinner was able to, whether it was physical health because he was dealing with some kind of injury against Felix Auger-Aliassime in the semifinal, maybe some kind of an ab injury. His serving speeds were definitely lower than usual. He was not making as many first serves as usual. He won less than half of his points on second serve, so that really hurt him against Carlos, who obviously both of these guys are two of the best returners, and that's what is part of the reason that this rivalry is so compelling, is that you can never feel too comfortable in any game. And no service game is just an easy service game almost ever, except for Alcaraz in this match, really. But too many short balls from Sinner, and I felt like whether it was Sinner's inability to compete to his 110%, like usual, ability to regroup and really get this intensity, it just felt like he wasn't really all there 100% to the level where we usually see him at. And it's hard to tell whether that was physical or whether that was what Alcaraz was doing, maybe completely, or if it was partly Sinner. But like I said, I think the story of the match was more Alcaraz, but definitely it's worthy to point out that Sinner was not at his best either. And I felt like Sinner, his serving here and in Cincinnati at times was lower level than we're used to seeing from him since the end of 2023. So that's something that Sinner is definitely going to go back to the drawing board and work on. But it's amazing to me to see that after their Wimbledon matchup, Alcaraz went to the drawing boards and just decided for this one that he was just going to absolutely crack the forehands to the forehand of Sinner. And obviously that is a strategy that not only others wouldn't think of, but others wouldn't even be able to dream of pulling off to dominate the forehand-to-forehand cross-court exchanges against Jannik. Because that's really Jannik's bread and butter. But Alcaraz was out-hitting Sinner here, and it was partially his serve that was able to set up points won at the net. He won almost every point at the net because he was able to set up these easy volleys for himself, or just incredible, like, breathtaking half volleys and other crazy improvisational shots, but also just set up huge forehand winners from his side. And especially, I mean, early on in the match, right from the get-go, but especially in the third set or even parts of the fourth set, it was some of the highest level of tennis I've ever seen. And Alcaraz was hitting consistently 85 plus, 90, 95 plus miles per hour forehands, just one after another, as hard as possible. I don't know if it was Sinner at Wimbledon who was able to be on the front foot and just crack forehands himself and basically do what Alcaraz did to Sinner. Sinner was able to do to Alcaraz there that made Alcaraz be like, let me just try to turn the tables on him the next time. I don't know what it was, but definitely Sinner was not able to have an answer to Alcaraz and his hard hitting today. And like I said, the depth on the defense, his defensive movements from the start were just incredible, constant deep balls, and it took such an intensity from Sinner in the second set to take the lead once again, and it didn't really feel like it was going to be easy for him to sustain that, and it wasn't. Third set was a complete runaway set for Alcaraz. It was nearly 6-love, but Sinner got a game at the end. But yeah, overall, too many short balls from Sinner. Alcaraz, no double faults, serving incredible, serve speed of Alcaraz the same as Sinner, which is a big deal. 9 points in the whole match lost on first serve, making 13% more first serves in than Sinner. And Alcaraz, like I said, just playing at such high level, hitting 20 more winners than Sinner, and he also hit 17 more winners than he hit unforced errors himself, according to the stat sheet. So those are some things that I would say about the match. Just the absolute power, the clutch serving when he needed it the most throughout the match, and defense that will blow your mind. I almost wonder if in a matchup where both guys challenge the other guy and make the other guy uncomfortable, if maybe Alcaraz brings Sinner more out of his comfort zone in general than Sinner brings Alcaraz out of his comfort zone. I think they both do this, but I think at this point, especially as Alcaraz keeps improving, it's showing that Alcaraz is able to adjust to Sinner's game a little bit better than Alcaraz is able to adjust to, than Sinner is able to adjust to Alcaraz's game. It'll be interesting to see how we move on from here on out, but it is a big deal that in a hard court final at a slam, Sinner wins in pretty one-sided fashion. To me, this was... People keep comparing this to Wimbledon. I guess I just did as well. There is a comparison there, but I feel like Wimbledon was a better match and less one-sided than this one. And that's even given the fact that I feel like Alcaraz half checked out, whether willingly or not, in the third and fourth sets in that Wimbledon match, just because of how well and confident and dominantly Sinner was playing and serving. But here it felt here it felt even more like Sinner just didn't have any answers whatsoever to what Alcaraz was doing from the get-go, with the exception of the second set. So that's what I would say about that. Alcaraz is 7-0 from 2 sets to 1 up. That's going to change at some point, but it's amazing to me, his record in best of 5. It just goes to show how good he is. In best of 5 so early in his career, it's mind-blowing. To me, I consider him never having lost a 5-set match. He's technically lost 1, but that was him trying to chase down a 2-sets-to-love deficit against one of the best players in the world at, like, I think 17, 18 years old, maybe 18 years old, against one of the top seeds, Matteo Berrettini. That's the only 5-set loss he's had. He's incredible in best of 5, and he shows up for these big moments and the slams. So, yeah, Alcaraz showing yet again how good he is and how tough he is to beat in the slams. And once again, he regains world number 1 with the US Open final, just like a few years ago against Casper Ruud. This was a match to play for the world number 1, just like against Casper Ruud. And he achieves, I mean, to me, he achieves objectively all-time great status with this. I mean, he has 6 slams. He's tied with Becker and Edberg. He was already in the history books anyway, but now he's just, it's not even about him being the youngest to do anything or youngest to do that. He has placed himself, even if he hung up his racket right now, a huge piece in the history books. A huge piece in the history books just about him right now. And he's not even close to turning 23 yet. So now I'm just going to give a broad overview of the match, and then I'm going to go into a somewhat broad overview of the tournament as a whole, and then go to the power rankings. The first set, Alcaraz just plays unreal. The same insane depth on defense that I was mentioning. Sinner hitting a bit too short. I felt like Sinner's level in the first set was actually the worst level he had in the entire match. I felt like he actually picked up his level in the third set. Just Alcaraz in the third set just blew my mind. The third set from Alcaraz was one of the best sets of tennis I've ever seen anyone play. And you could probably argue the same thing for the first set, but the third set was, to me, it took me away. Took my breath away. Sinner missing first serves, the same forehand dynamic not working for Alcaraz, as I mentioned, and Alcaraz really got the lead very early on, breaking in the first game, and he kind of ran away with the first set altogether. In the second set, Alcaraz starts missing first serves. He's not winning second serve points at this point, and I think the first serve percentage is always so important in this rivalry. They're both all-time great returners, and you need to make that first serve in. They both absolutely demolish second serve returns and just get on the front foot so early on. Sinner starts playing, honestly, pretty unreal level of tennis for like a 4 or 5 game period. It's what we're used to from Sinner. Great depth of shot. He breaks at love, partially due to Alcaraz, partially due to Sinner, but he breaks at love. And he takes the set, and a lot of it has to do with the serve return dynamic. Alcaraz's serve got slightly worse, Sinner's serve got slightly better, and it was Sinner who started dominating for just like 4 or 5 games from the back of the court, hitting great depth. But then Alcaraz just starts off the third set just awesome, with such an intensity and energy, doing all, his serve is back and better than ever, and he's just making these ridiculous shots. He makes this overhead from the back of the court that slices away from Sinner that I've never seen before in my life at 0-2 in the third set. And he's just playing at a level where every shot is just perfect. And he's not hitting any shot that's going in front of the service line. It is remarkable. Even like Sinner hits a drop shot, and Alcaraz just his standard shot, picking up a drop shot, he hits it with perfect width. That makes it just very uncomfortable for Sinner, even though he should be in a winning position. It's just these little things where Alcaraz is just, and he's rocking forehands. I mean, he's completely in control against the player that most people consider the hardest hitting player in the world. And Alcaraz just has so many options. So in a battle where both guys are coming, this is their 6th straight meeting in a final. Their 5th straight big tournament that they both played where they reached the final and played against each other. And in a back and forth where they're both applying different tactics, Alcaraz has so many different options to go to. And that's a big reason that he's leading 10-5. Because if they're switching tactics, Alcaraz has about 500 tactics in his repertoire that he hasn't even implemented yet. And he's inventing new shots, improvising them on the fly every match he plays. So that's what I'd have to say about that. But yeah, this is the best serving that I've seen from Alcaraz. I thought Sinner in the 4th set played a weak game at 2-2. He was in control, honestly. I thought this was the highest level of the match if you look at both players. And he was up 30-15 this game. But then Sinner hits a double fault, and then he has a couple weak unforced errors. He just hits a pretty simple shot as a unforced error on his forehand wing. So that's basically the match. At the end of the match, you almost got nervous for a second for Carlos because Sinner hits this absolutely amazing backhand return, and you start thinking, is he about to turn the tables on Carlos and do what Carlos did at the French, or what Carlos did against Sinner 3 years ago in the all-time great quarterfinal they played? But even more important than that, actually, is the first point of the game, and I felt like a very defining point of the match as a whole, where Sinner has a forehand down the line open after a forehand-to-forehand exchange, and he goes for this lower percentage cross-court forehand, even though it's over the lower part of the net. It felt like he had a down the line open, and he goes for this lower percentage cross-court and he misses it. And I felt like that was an important moment. It would have been good to get a lead in the game early. He did bring it to deuce, but it would have been good to get that point and take a lead early. And it felt like he was just really uncomfortable and really indecisive and nervous in those forehand-to-forehand exchanges. And it makes sense as to why. I mean, Carlos, like he said, and he's right, he played a perfect match. So Carlos with an insane level, and for all the things Sinner could have done more, and done more of, and they're done better, and there's a lot. Alcaraz did all the right things, and he might have beaten just about anybody in tennis history the way that he played that match. But for sure, he beat Jannik Sinner, and that's an achievement in itself. 6 slam for him, tying Becker and Edberg. All-time great status, no doubt. And what a win for him. Talking about the tournament as a whole, too many retirements. Way too many retirements in this tournament due to a crazy schedule. You can talk to death, and you should talk to death about the fact that there should be a longer off-season. It gives players absolutely no rest. We all know this. There needs to be that period of time. I'm not saying there needs to be an off-season the length of some other sports, whether it be basketball or another, but there needs to be some kind of an off-season for these players. But I think the bigger issue that's standing out to me with player physicality these days is the 2-week Masters. To me, these tournaments, and the players have talked about this, Sinner mentioned it right before the US Open began, it's taking a physical toll on the players. That's what I expected to happen, and that's exactly what's happened. If you have to stay in this high pressure, intense state of mind, and then also just play so many matches over a 2-week period consistently, and these are mandatory tournaments, it's nonstop, it's just not a good look, and it's not good for the players. And it's actually not good for the fans. I feel like most fans enjoy the 1-week format anyway. To me, more than anything, it feels like a way to force the Masters to be more like the Slams, because they want the Masters to be just as prestigious or just as watched as the Slams. But it's not working. It's not gonna work. And also, it's killing the players. So I wish that would stop. Shelton retired. To me, he was the 3rd favorite to take the title. And he was definitely a top 5 favorite to win the title. It'd be very difficult to argue otherwise. And a lot of other retirements throughout the whole tournament. And there's no doubt in my mind that it's to do with the 2-week Masters. And that's what the players keep saying, and we should listen to the players. I mean, they are essentially the product. They are the player. They are they are the players that are making this whole thing work. So we need to listen to what they need, because they're the people who are making this great product that we all love to watch. So if they're not feeling comfortable, then we need to listen to them. Otherwise, I'd say it's a pretty predictable tournament, except for Felix, who played the best tennis I've ever seen him play. He basically decimated his part of the draw. He didn't even let Rublev or de Minaur get a chance at their first slam semi after his really memorable win over Zverev. It was good to see him back it up twice. He had 2 very similar comebacks against de Minaur and against Zverev, 2 players who I think have been in pretty good form. Even if for Sasha Zverev, I wouldn't say it's good form for his standards, but it's good form anyway, and a really amazing tournament for him, and also ending on a high note with a 4-set loss to Sinner. A brutal, amazing match against Yannick. I thought it was either the best or the second best match of the tournament. It was either that or the men's final. There weren't really that many great men's matches. Actually, shout out to Gaboli versus Brooksby early round match. That was like, I can't remember, like 10-7 in the fifth set tiebreaker or something. That was high level. But honestly, there were very few high level matches throughout the entire tournament that really stood out as standouts. But I felt that F.A. Sinner was one of those few standouts. And shout out to F.A., he played great. Fritz didn't bring nearly enough against Djokovic. It was honestly slightly disappointing to me. He showed up really late in that match. There's a lot of talk of if he broke in that 5-4 game, maybe he would have been able to figure something out. But Djokovic has been absolutely amazing. 4 semifinals and 4 slams. It can't be talked enough about how ridiculous this is. It really cannot at 38 years old. And also, just as important to mention, this is his 7th time making all 4 slam semifinals in 1 year. That's 28 slam semifinals. Alcaraz has been to 9. Roddick has been to 10. Those are just a few I know off the top of my head. Just from semis where Djokovic makes all 4 in the same year, he's made 28. That's insane. And he's done so at 38 years old. So, I mean, people are saying last year Djokovic should have retired. People said this year Djokovic should have retired, but he's still making history. Last year he wins the Olympics. This year he's still in the still competing with these guys at slams. Beats Alcaraz in Australia, beats Zverev at Roland Garros, beats Fritz at the US Open. Wimbledon has a good run, so great run actually. Some great wins at Wimbledon too that were really dominant. So he still is the 3rd best player in the world. There's no doubt, honestly. He's been the 3rd best player in the world at slams this year, which is amazing. That he's basically shown up for 3 slams back to back to back with pretty much no warm up or no lead up, and he's made the semis. Semis is no joke. So that's amazing. Medvedev against Bonzi was a dramatic match earlier. That was crazy. Rinderknecht is honestly having a great year, even though nobody's looking at him. I just want to mention that. And a lot of seeds were making it through early rounds, but then after everything that happened in the tournament, even though it wasn't all predictable, like I mentioned, Felix played amazing, but at the end of the day, it was the final that everyone expected between Sinner and Alcaraz. I felt like Wimbledon was amazing. Roland Garros was an all-timer. I didn't feel like this was as good of a match, but it was a good match anyway. That came with its fair share of great points and an incredible level from Carlos. So hopefully Sinner can go back to the drawing boards and kind of improve upon it, but actually I'm 100% sure he is going to do that. On to the power rankings. Number 1, Carlos Alcaraz. He is the obvious number 1 right now in the power rankings. He's the number 1 in the ATP rankings. Well-deserved. Back to world number 1 for the first time in over 2 years. Number 2 is Yannick Sinner. Number 3 is Novak Djokovic. They are definitely the top 3 here. Number 4, I kept Ben Shelton at number 4. He was not healthy in this tournament. Nobody else really stepped up to take his spot here. So he's been consistently one of the best players and one of the highest levels. So hopefully he'll be back healthy soon. Number 5 is Taylor Fritz. Decent tournament here, even though I wish that he performed at a better level against Djokovic, but beats Mahash in straight sets. Kim plays a great match against him, and he is honestly playing a great level against Kim too. Ended up getting that one in 4 sets. Fritz has been pretty consistent since the grass swing. Number 6 is Felix Auger-Aliassime. Level-wise, it feels like he should be like 3 or 4 here. The only reason he's not higher is because he really didn't find anything close to this level until this week. His results were not good until a couple weeks ago in Cincinnati. So in terms of power rankings, week after week, he's not really had this level, but if he continues with this level, he is right there behind Sinner and Alcaraz. I hope that happens. I hope this is a turning of a leaf for him. Number 7 is Sasha Zverev. Number 8 is Alex de Minaur. Number 9 is Bublik. Good tournament, great match against Paul. Actually, that's another match that I thought was quite good, is Tommy Paul against Alexander Bublik. Probably a top 5 match of the tournament for me. But Bublik 6-1, 6-1, 6-1 lost to Sinner, and obviously it's against Sinner, but It feels like Bublik should be a little bit lower in the power rankings at this point. Number 10 is Yuri Lehechka. He deserves a shout out. He's not been beating a whole lot of top 10 players, but he's been consistent week after week. He deserves a shout out. He plays a great game. Lost to Alcaraz in the quarters here. Lost to Shelton in Cincinnati. Barely lost to Fritz in Canada. Lost to De Minaur in Washington, who ended up winning that tournament. In Queens, he makes the final and beats Jack Draper, loses to Alcaraz in 3 sets. So Lehechka deserves a shout out to be number 10 here. Players to watch, I've got Flavio Caboli. He was unhealthy and had to retire in this tournament, but I think he's been playing a great level recently. Musetti was playing a really good level as well this tournament, so I'd watch out for him, and especially on the natural surfaces, where I think he plays a little bit better than hard courts, but still, I'm glad to see him back at a high level, because I was starting to get a little bit worried, to be honest, after the clay swing. And then also Adrian Mannarino is the last player I want to mention. You wouldn't describe him as the most beautiful to watch player around. I don't think anybody would, but Cincinnati plays a great match against Sinner and wins 5 matches here. He makes the 4th round, and obviously Shelton had to retire against him, but he's been playing a good level, so I felt like I want to give him a shout out. At 37 years old, he's playing pretty damn well, and he's won a few titles. So shout out to Mannarino, why not? He's my other player to watch. All right, that's been my US Open podcast covering the US Open as a whole and Sinner versus Alcaraz. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys at the next one.